Okay. All right. Welcome this morning to Legislative Update. My guest is Senator Lynda Wilson from Vancouver. Welcome, Senator Wilson.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
And you are serving on the Ways and Means Committee, and your expertise is in the budget. So we were going to talk a little bit about the state budget this morning. What updates would you like to provide for folks? So what's the status today?
Well, the status right now hasn't changed a whole lot. I mean, it's a $64 billion budget, and we have $15 billion in surplus. And so what I'm seeing is it's going to be spent mostly. I know when you go between the two budgets in the House and the Senate, I think it's going to be pretty much, wrapped up. I know already that because of a transportation, I guess I'd say snafu, right, where they put the 6 cent per gallon on the gas that is being refined in the state and shipped out to other states. So Alaska, Idaho, and Oregon, there's been quite the uproar over that. And so I think they're trying to figure out a way to transplant that or figure it out if they don't do it. And so I think there's going to be more money out of the operating budget for that. So we'll see, because, yeah.
Yeah, but, it's an interesting shift for the Democrats to be okay with taking money out of the operating budget for transportation.
Yeah, and they did that already, right? They took $2 billion out. Now, we have been, basically trying to do this for the last couple of years, but what we wanted to do was in a little different way, right? The motor vehicle tax would go straight from there to transportation, which seems to have a natural nexus. And so, and we were able to do that in our budget last year, which would have given basically the same amount of money, $16 billion over 16 years, without, though, all the other tax increases and, license plate increases and driver's license increases. I mean, and those are substantial. So we could have done it without having to raise any of those taxes. But, with this budget here, it's crazy because there's no tax relief at all. I mean, they're talking about a few gimmicks is what has been happening the last few days. But there's 1,000 policy adds to this budget. And, that's a lot. That's $6 billion worth of spending. And so it's interesting, that they weren't able to get tax relief for us, especially now, right? With the inflation, the way it's going, and I don't see an end to this for a while. And people are feeling
it's one of the questions that's been coming up is why no middle income tax relief right, when we're all hit with inflation so hard.
Oh, I know. And I, we've been advocating for that for a couple of years now. I mean, one of the tax breaks that we wanted to give people was the property tax relief, right? And it would be substantial. And that would be for a lot of people, and they're not looking at that.
Yeah, I've heard from a number of people who, the valuation on their house has gone up, their taxes have gone up a great deal, and that's not just homeowners, but landlords, the small landlords that have a few houses that they take care of, and those are taxes that have to get passed on. So yeah, so going on from the lack of tax relief. What is this, the Working Families Tax Credit, and how is that supposed to work? Because it sounds like a good title.
It is, and it was broadly supported. I had a bill for that last year. So this is a last year bill. This year, it's basically just a change. So it's basically a credit against sales tax. So it's a check that's mailed to them at the end, because of course you don't have an income tax yet, right? So that's where the federal comes in. And then this year they're changing it because if they'd hit a certain level, then it would just drop off. Instead, they want to kind of graduate it out a little bit. So it costs a little bit more money, but it is for the very low income people. So, and like I said, it was pretty broadly supported. It was something that we thought, these are people that are working. And so you have to be working in order to get this credit. So, I know that it was years ago, 10 years ago, I think, when this bill was written. And so I took that bill from 10 years ago last year and ran it, and then they changed it up. But I had a bit of a ability to change the way that program was going last year.
Okay. So that's a little bit of that. That really is a Working Families Tax Credit against sales tax, the burden, sales tax burden. And well, that's another way of dealing with the the charge of a regressive system.
Right.
Oh, okay. So two bipartisan bills to bring tax relief have lingered in the state Senate Ways and Means Committee, is according to this report. And is there any chance of those not lingering anymore? Any of those tax relief bills coming forward?
Well, no, I don't think so. I mean, they've heard them, and their own member had a sales tax bill, and that didn't even get heard. So there's no real stomach for that. I think that this is it. I think that there 2 nights ago we passed the operating budget in Ways and Means, and there were a couple of amendments, and one of those was to their big tax relief was the free parks, so the free Discovery Pass for a year, and then the second one was free getting into your local county fair, free admission. So that's pretty targeted and not much, right? But that's what they're counting as their tax relief.
Wouldn't you know it? I bought a Discovery Pass this year, and I usually get into the fair by working there, but that's
that's right.
Well, yeah.
Right. And then I guess in the House side, then of course they have the sales tax holiday, right? And that truly, I've been watching the media. It's really truly a gimmick, right? It's a 3-day pass to not pay sales tax on certain products on a certain day, and they tell you how much money you can spend, and that's it's pretty prescriptive. But I think the businesses are going to have a little problem with that, because they have to do a whole lot of recomputing in their systems in order to figure out how to do that. And they, so that really is kind of a gimmick if you really talk about it.
Now that you mentioned, I hadn't thought about it from that standpoint. I first read that as a consumer. I'm thinking, all right, what's on the list? Anything I need to buy, I'll buy it then. Right. Which just shifts when the purchase happens. But yeah, you're right. The sales tax computation would be a major issue. Issue.
Yeah.
Well, so now the budget has to be reconciled between the Senate and the House. What are the next steps this coming week?
Well, today we're on the floor and we're passing the operating budget. So we'll be on the floor for quite some time, because I know there's a lot of amendments. So that, and then the transportation supplemental budget is also on the floor. And so those will go off the floor today, and then they'll head over to the House and they'll go through the same process. And then we have less than 2 weeks now to get those two budgets together. And I really hope that we're not kept in the dark about all the things that they're going to try and incorporate. The House spends about another $1 billion more than the Senate. So they're going to have to figure out how they're going to do that. And, with this one, it was, they dropped the bill, and then we heard it at 4 o'clock that afternoon. So hardly any time to read a 750-page bill. But yeah.
Right. So besides just observing and taking into consideration what they observe when they vote in November, is there anything that that voters and citizens can do to participate in the process effectively?
Well, the remote system has been working pretty well since we can't be there. And so I think that would be the best way, is for them to continue to write into their legislators and tell them what they expect. I mean, I am shocked that there is no tax relief in this bill with $15 billion. And I believe that if we don't do it this year, we're never going to do it. And I think that they forget that it is our money. It is the taxpayers' money. So, it's time. And like you and I were saying about the inflation, it is crazy out there. And so, I mean, I hear from people who say that they've gone to the grocery store and they have to take things out of their grocery cart, because it's just, their dollar's not going near as far as it was. And so now's the time to do this. And, coming out of the pandemic, it would be a really nice thing to do for people. But I just don't see that it's going to happen. And that's really disappointing to me.
Okay, so it's worth participating, worth watching. I know at tvw.org, I know that I actually have really enjoyed the access that I have without having to drive to Olympia. So TVW has done a great job of making committee hearings, council hearings, commissions, and the House and Senate floor debates accessible to everybody.
Mhm.
So we'll follow up on your advice to watch and send notes. I did talk to Senator Joe Schmick about how he handles a flood of emails. He said he can't always respond, but he said he does always read every one of them.
Mhm.
And I think people need to remember that too.
It is hard. I know. And sometimes we do. And I feel bad if I don't have a very thoughtful response back. But I thought in the last few days, I've been saying, you know what? I think I'll just say, hey, thank you. I agree with you. Or, thanks for writing in, right? Because it really is nice to hear from people. It's amazing what we can hear and what we can learn from our constituents, right? They have different perspectives based on their own slice of the pie, right? And I like to hear the differences in their perspectives, because it gives me more to think about as we pass these bills. So it really is good.
We'll bring it to a close there, and you have a busy weekend and week ahead of you, and so do involved voters.
Yes, they do. That's right. Well, thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thank you, Senator Wilson.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.